Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United of the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes down. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United from the National League are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast in association with Lucky Star Gin. I'm your host Mike, and joining me today we have got Ali and Paul. We are going to be talking about an away defeat to Wrexham, but what's been hailed as the best away performance for a long time, although that was with the caveat as the bar was quite low. And we'll have a quick chat about the Bradford match as well. Engagement is important. I do like all the comments that we see, so please just keep commenting, liking, sharing, etc., etc. And thank you to everyone who does that automatically. And we're going to dive in. So, Ali, it was about 4 or 5 weeks ago for you, mid-September, I think it was. How have you been?
Yeah,
since?
I think it was. Good. Thanks, Mike. Very good. I think it was the Accrington game I was last on, if I remember rightly.
Oh yeah.
Which was one we'd like to forget.
That might be why I couldn't remember, was it?
Been good. Been probably the closest away game for me all season, only being about 6 or 7 miles from where I live now. So it was nice to be able to leave the house at sort of 6:45 instead of leaving 2 hours before to get to wherever I need to go up here.
Nice. And Paul, hello.
Hello,
It's been a long while for you. I think it's early August.
Wow.
Although you were supposed to be on for the game that I just bottled it and couldn't face doing.
Still a wise decision.
Yeah. Sitting here rocking in my chair and I can't. So been a Wednesday, there's not much in the way of club news, so I'll skip through this quite quickly. The ladies' side have been drawn at home in the FA Cup on the 12th of November, so another beautiful game that I've got my season ticket and paid for entry for the FA Cup game, but it's fun. Obviously, Matt mentioned the sad news of Sam's wrist injury, or hand injury rather. It sounds horrific. So he's broken that. He's out for a few weeks. Poor bloke, can't catch a break. On the podcast news, there's just got an email about half an hour ago. Apparently, I'm on Good Pub's indie football charts at number 21, and there's a badge or something I get for that. So I don't know what that's all about. I'll look into that. And if anyone wants to give it a try, I'm going to be public that I've revamped the website, suttonpodcast.com. There is a social element to it as well. There's nothing going on there at the moment because there's only like 3 or 4 of us on there and it's still testing phases. So if people want to join and give me some feedback and test it out for me, I would be delighted. Just don't say it's rubbish yet. But we will talk about the game. So Fan Hub, I completely forgot to do my lineup, but I would never have got near that 11. Ali, what were your thoughts sort of with the lineup and ahead of kickoff?
As soon as I saw the lineup, I thought I think we were setting up to try and probably take a point, or at least maybe push for a win if we got the opportunity. I think the team, when I looked on paper, they looked quite strong and compact. I think Matt seen it as a bit of a free shot to try and just see if he could get something out of it. I think from the lineup, they were looking to be strong across the middle, really strong at the back, and just try and catch on the break if we could with Smith and O'Brien.
Yeah. Paul, there was lots of sort of chat beforehand of people trying to work out the formation. And although the personnel was slightly different and used to playing in certain roles, I think I put in the little group saying just because they're not wingers doesn't mean that Matt's not going to play them there. And it was a 4-4-2. But what were you thinking sort of ahead of kickoff with that lineup?
Yeah. When I same as Ali really, but when I saw the lineup, first of all I thought, God, we're thin on the ground already. Actually, that injury list, I haven't really paid too much attention to the injury list. It felt like it's creeped up on us a little bit, and I thought already struggling for a little strength in depth. But so that was the first thing. The second thing was the lineup. Definitely, the Jackson and Beauty thing was really interesting. Suggested it was a game plan of containment. And the other thing that jumped out at me was Wrexham's lineup. Actually, I mean that it was a ridiculous bench. He had Elliot Lee on there. He scored 1 in 4 in his career. You had Dolby, Fletcher on there, and it was like, wow, that bench is. When we looked at ours, it was just they looked like a formidable lineup. So it was. I was worried, and I was thought there was potential for a cricket score, but no, it was fantastic performance. But that was my initial thought around lineup was the Jackson Beautyman thing was really interesting, and just thin on the ground.
Yeah. Although, I mean, we've got Scott Cashgett out, Eastie out, Sam now. Not sure who else is overly. I mean, I don't know what's happened with Lee. It's not been on the bench for a little while, not been spoken about. And Hish is also out. But I'd actually forgotten that they'd signed McLean. So our Irish international was from like 6-7 years ago, and McLean literally retired a few weeks ago from the football. It's like, okay, here's the difference between the sides. But we did okay for the first sort of 15 minutes or so, Ali. What were your kind of thoughts soaking up that pressure in the first sort of quarter of an hour or so?
Yeah, I thought it was just important for them to try and, like you say, soak up a bit of that pressure, try and get into the game, settle down, not let the sort of, it sounds corny, but the occasion of it all get to them. And I think they've done quite well early on. Rode our luck a couple of times. There was a couple of half chances sort of thing. And I think we had a couple of half chances early on. But I think they've done pretty well up until the goal, which, is just one of those ones where you're not going to, it's just a 30-yard or 25-yarder into the top corner. You're not going to get really near that. It's just one of those things. And that's the kind of thing that Paul Mullin does in this league at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know if you can still hear us, Paul. Your camera's got switched off, but
yes, I can.
Okay, was Murray's goal expected? Sorry, Mullin. I mixed up the name. They were kept calling O'Brien O'Reilly, so we'll go with Murray.
Yeah, I mean he's in the wrong league, isn't he? And he only needs half a chance, and it was a cracking strike. I've watched it a few times. I don't know whether first of all I thought Adino was a little bit flat-footed, but actually I think it just caught him by surprise. And it's just it's hit the side netting, isn't it? And not a lot we could do with that, which was a real shame because, as I said, we contained them, didn't give them a sniff. Really looked fairly even before that goal went in, and when it went in, it was like, oh, here we go. But no, they kept in it, which was fantastic and showed their resolve.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched it back again a couple of times because there's always criticism, and it was like he moved into a great space he moved out of defence in great space with the midfield. And if I can't remember which defender, I think it was Omar marking him. If he had followed, there would have been a great big gap where Omar should have been. So it was really good movement from obviously a very good forward. But as you kind of mentioned there, Paul, we didn't perhaps. We battled. Yeah. And actually, the last 5 minutes of the half or so, we probably could be counted unlucky not to have grabbed one or even a couple of goals with some of the chances. How did it feel in the stadium, Ali?
I think we were right in the game, really. I think obviously when they went 1-0 down, there was that worry that, as we've seen throughout this season, really, it's just that's it. You sort of feel like the game's over and they're just going to concede 3 or 4 goals. So to stay in it and create chances was really positive. And to be fair, that like I said, they were right in it. There was a few probably wrong decisions. I think the linesman was getting a bit of stick from myself and others. He was on the linesman on our side was well off the ball. He gave a couple of offsides where he was at least 10 yards behind the play that, had they developed, it could have created another chance for us. But you sort of felt like if we had half a chance, we might get something out of the first half. But to go in at 1-0, I was fairly happy because they'd actually fought back to get back in the game at 1-0 down and stayed in it with Wrexham.
Yeah, Paul, you were watching online with the away comms as well. That last few minutes did take them a bit by surprise. What were your thoughts coming towards the end of the first half?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, chuffed that we were still at 1-0 and thinking if we can get in at half-time 1-0 and we're still in this. But it was a real battling performance throughout the game, wasn't it? Didn't let them have too much, really. I mean, they had a lot of ball. I thought Wrexham had a lot of ball and they were knocking it around the place. But in terms of chances and penetrating us and certainly down the wings and things like that, they didn't really have too much of a sniff. So I thought going in at 1-0, I thought, just the scoreline alone, I thought that's terrific. We got a real chance in the second half. But actually, that we kept them down to minimum chances as well. It wasn't like we were really lucky to be at 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, they had a few chances and long shots, which I think one of their commentators got very excited that Fino had dropped it, but actually he kind of parried it and took the sting out of it. And it's like, he dropped it. He just didn't hold the ball. But second half, we kind of, again, complete switch from recent times. Came out and was proper on it and had most of the play. And I was very impressed. I've watched this goal back several times with Harry Smith's drill across the goal. I was kind of like, as he getting in position, I thought he's going to shoot and side net this, but lovely drill across the goal. Ali, how were you guys? I don't know which end you were at when he scored, but was that close to you guys?
No, so we were at the opposite end, unfortunately, in the corner. But we had a fairly good view of it. Again, it was a nicely worked goal, and we'd had chances in just before that where they'd worked the ball nicely into good areas. So to get the goal was positive, and like I say, it did silence the home crowd a lot. I think not sure. I was talking to people in work today who were season ticket holders at Wrexham, and they were saying they couldn't understand for pretty much the whole second half. Wrexham were second best, and they just came out. They couldn't understand if it was just overconfidence on their part, coming out and thinking we've won this, we'll get another couple here or what. Because he said, and when Sutton got into their faces in the second half and were controlling the game, they didn't really have an answer to it until they brought some subs on.
Yeah, Paul, what was your thoughts and view on the goal and kind of domination in the second half?
Yeah, for me, the second half, the big difference, and Matt's talked about it a bit, hasn't he? Just he needing more training and more time with the team. And I got off there. I thought what's been missing this season is just the players just not connecting. They're not knowing. They're not thinking one or two. Well, they're trying to think 1 or 2, 3 passes in ahead of the game, but they don't know where everyone is, and it often just collapses. The ball goes in the wrong place. It's intercepted, or there just doesn't seem to be the connection on the pitch. And I thought the second half. There was, but I mean, first of all, they were getting stuck in and winning a lot of ball, but then they were the passing was good, the getting around the back was good, knocking it up and down the centre. They all seemed to know what their jobs were and where they were and what they were doing. I haven't seen that for a while this season, so it was really encouraging stuff. And when the goal went in, it was like, for a period in that game, it was like certainly we're up for a point here, and actually there's only one winner in this.
Yeah. I mean, it's Matt clearly had a plan with the 2 first choice wingers on the bench, and when it was ticking through to the sort of 70th minute, it was like, I wonder is he going to do it, because we were doing okay, we were holding our own, and I was just wondered, would he say, actually no, let's leave it as it is and stick with the defensive formation? But no, he went for it and brought on the 2 wingers, kind of as expected. Were you a little bit surprised at that, or were you looking forward to it, or were you hoping that they were going to go for it?
I think just feeding onto what Paul said there as well, one thing I did notice during the game was about them working as a unit was they were you could see them communicating a lot on the pitch and passing players off to each other. When one moved into a different space, they were passing out. They were communicating with each other in midfield and in defence, almost saying, "That's your man now. I'm going to go over here, and that's your man." So that was nice to see, because it seems to be they've been a bit lost as a group before that. With the subs, I think I was a bit surprised when they made them, only because I don't think Amari and Josh Coley are probably the strongest defensively. So I thought we had quite a good shape. We were quite compact. However, I think Jackson and Beautyman were both pretty exhausted, as most of the team were. You could see they were quite exhausted by the time they were brought off. So it was probably the right time to make a sub. But you did lose that little bit of control and dominance in the midfield.
Yeah, and from watching it again, the commentators were very surprised that we're bringing on attacking players at that stage of the game.
And I think that, Michael, I think that goes back to that whole strength in depth on the bench. That I'll be interested to know whether Matt's tactics were actually, let's go out and win this thing with a more attacking formation, or literally they're all on their knees on the pitch and we need to swap it, and this is all we've got to swap. So the attacking formation was almost forced on us a little bit, just simply because of the numbers and the names that we had, and the style of players we had on the bench.
I'd like to think that it's because he was doing it for a tactical reason of, let's hold them for like 70, 75 minutes and then go for them once they kind of thought something's.
I mean, it's feasible, isn't it? It's feasible,
yeah. No, I mean, positive, always positive. But yes, we did lose to a last-minute goal, or a 9-minute goal again. But as Paul's already kind of mentioned, it's not like a rubbish player came on the pitch and just got a bit lucky. It was a good shot. Another time, another day, a bit of wind would have taken that a little bit further away, and all sorts of other ifs, buts, and maybes. But ultimately, it's a defeat. But does it? And I think I know the answer to this. Ali, does it feel the same as other defeats, or does it kind of feel like, okay, we didn't expect to get anything out of that, this feels a little bit different?
I think, like I say, I think my impression going into the game was it was a free shot last night. If we could get a point or a win out of it, it would be great. I think, most people were going there expecting to concede a few, because Wrexham do score a lot of goals. To be in that position up until the sort of 89th minute where you're taking a point away, it is gutting. But again, it was two sort of world-class strikes that have won it for them. Speaking to people who are Wrexham fans in work, who were at the game, season ticket holders, they all thought we were quite hard done by, and had it not been for two world-class strikes, we'd have either nicked it or definitely deserved a point out of it. I think you've got to try and build on that positivity that we took from last night, because they are one of the better teams in the league. They've got you've got players like Fletcher coming off the bench, you've got Mendy coming off the bench, you've got all these not world class, but in that level, probably playing championship players, playing at League Two level. So to lose that late, it is gutting, but you sort of take a bit of solace in the fact that they actually looked like they played as a unit last night. I think had it not been for a world class strike, I think we'd have probably weathered the storm and got the draw there, because you could feel the pressure coming. They had about 5 or 6 corners in a short space of time and about 3 or 4 throw-ins, but we were, between Goody, Joe Kizzy and Omar, they were just clearing absolutely everything and winning every ball in the air pretty much. So there wasn't really much threat from those. It was just you were waiting for what that was, a magic moment from them, really. But I think if we can build on that and take it into the weekend, I think it shows signs of real promise, which we hadn't seen earlier in the season.
And Paul, again, talk us through the goal, but as Ali was saying, promise and shoots of recovery. And I think you mentioned earlier Sutton of old. But yeah, what was your kind of thoughts on it's another loss?
Yeah, the same as Ali, really. We didn't expect anything out of the game, and actually, because we got so close, it was obviously very disappointing. But I think ask me in 6 games' time. I think, because we talk about kicking on here. Here's a chance to kick on, and we've got 6 teams that we need to get some points off: Bradford, Colchester, Tranmere, Grimsby, Crewe, and Harrogate. and we need to get that's a critical stage for us. And I think this game was a great stepping stone for us, and we can kick on from it. But we've said that before, and now we need to do it.
Yeah, well, he's got the weeks. So this is our last Tuesday game for a little while. So he's got what he wants with getting his thoughts into the players. I mean, obviously, massively support Matt. But it's like you look at teams like Morecambe, and it's like, well, how comes they've got the message into their players when they only had 6 players? So was the pre-season was starting. So it's why is it different and difficult for us to get into it? Because it's not exactly complicated tiki-taka football we're playing. They should know what to do. But yeah, I thought it was the Sutton of old, and I was having some conversations with various ex-players, and this one isn't going to go into any of the conversations. It went way off tangent. But it was like one of the markers of, is it a team, is, okay, if a punch was thrown, is everyone getting involved? Is there going to be 10 red cards likely to be chucked out? And up until very recently, I was like, I don't know. But now it was after last night, I was like, no, you can start seeing that togetherness a bit more. Obviously, I know it shouldn't happen if any ref said anything. We definitely don't condone that. One question that was brought up was the goalkeeper situation. Obviously, we've got 3 essentially number ones. There was a couple of people that did leave a lot of blame on Dino's gloves, but you've kind of covered that. I mean, do you guys want to see any change there? Do we want to have a go with Arnold in goal? Because as I said, when we played Crawley, he actually did really well with his kicking and everything as well, but then Crawley didn't offer an awful lot. Or are you happy to leave Dino run with it at the moment? Ali, we'll start with you. Seems like you've got thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I would leave it as it is for now. I think you've got to see how it progresses over the next few weeks, but it's never good for teams to keep chop and changing their goalies. We see that at every level when teams start doing that. It never really solves any problems. We've seen Sutton do it in the past where we've brought goalies in for a game here and there, and it tends to be a bit of a nightmare. I would leave Dino at the minute. He seems to be marshalling the back four quite well. I think you've got to go with the continuity now and say we've had a good performance last night. He wasn't at fault for either of the goals. The first one was just a brilliant strike, and then the goal at the end is a half volley from outside the area, and it's come through a crowded box and into the net. It wasn't. You can't say it was something that he probably would have saved. I think you've got to keep the continuity and just keep with the same as it is for now, unless it's really not working.
Paul?
Yeah, well, yeah, we've got 3 number 2s. I think that's the problem, isn't it? No one's really claimed that first number 1 jersey. And Dino, I've not been convinced by. Not been convinced by any of them, but I've not been convinced by Dino since it seems like a shadow of his former self. A lot of lack of confidence. I don't know. It seems a bit slower, less commanding. But as I said, it wasn't at fault for the goals. But and he's kicking. I've seen a lot skewing off that boot and heading to the sideline. So, but we know what he's capable of. He'll always have a place in in our hearts, as it were. But I've not been convinced. One of them just needs to grab this. And if it is to be Dino, then let's give him a couple more games at it. How many has he had now? 2 or 3, something like that. So let's give him a more of a run.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, anyone's going to be shaky. We're playing behind that defence, which is letting everyone just run past them and shoot. So it's like okay. Last little comment on this game is I was checking on some of the sort of social medias, and I saw one comment from a Wrexham fan. I thought I'm definitely going to read that one out, and full of praise. Said you're a good team, and he basically his phrase was, "You're a good team in a bad place. You will not struggle if you keep playing like that for the rest of the season," which kind of backs up a little bit what you were saying, Ali, with your work colleagues. So yeah, I didn't try too hard to find a Bradford fan. Never in the mood these days. And Twitter X makes these things a lot harder now because you can't just random message people. You've got to make sure you're all following each other and all sorts. And I'm not going to pay them for a blue tick. So, but we know we need to keep on what we were doing, but do we need to concentrate on what Bradford are doing, or do we just go, no, you know what, this is something, this is what we are going to do, you need to deal with it? Ali, can I start with you? What needs to happen against Bradford?
I think, obviously at home you want to see a little bit more expansive and attacking football. However, we have to bear in mind the position we're in, and I want to see them get 3 points. So we have to get 3 points by playing the same way we did last night against Wrexham, being compact, being strong across the back, strong across the midfield, and then nicking a 1-0. The important thing at the minute is we get 3 points. I think, I don't think Bradford are any sort of mugs in this league. They played well against Wrexham last week. I know they're probably a different beast like most teams at home. But I think the most important thing for Sutton is we have to go and get 3 points on Saturday, and whether that's by, like I say, nicking a 1-0 or beating them 3 or 4-0, or however we get the win, we've got to try and get 3 points on Saturday. Winning our home games now has to be the priority.
And Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, as I say, we've got those 6 games and we need points, don't we? And I think this would be, Bradford are 15th. They've struggled a bit. I mean, the first thing is we can't beat teams by letting in an average of, 3.2 goals a game or whatever we're doing at the moment. Yeah. So we've got to stop that. And that was a great start. I know we let in 2 last night, but I think it was a bit different to some of the stuff that's gone in the net over the last 10 games or so. So I think we've got to toughen that defence up, which feels like we're in that position. Know where everyone is and knock it in and around, and know what everyone's doing, and get behind them and score a goal or 2. Yeah, which naturally we have been scoring. So and I think it feels like we've got the strike force that we think is our number 1 strike force. So high hopes for Saturday, definitely.
Yeah,
excellent. Well, that leads us nicely on to the next part. Now, what I'm going to say is I'm not going to keep you to these predictions, because I know you're both doing quite well in the league. I mean, Paul, you're second, only by 2 points, and Ali, you're, I think, hang on, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. So you're 9 behind, but it can easily catch up. Everyone who's watching, the code is on the screen, so you can join in as well. Out of 120 possible points, our leader has 40. So there's plenty of time for people to catch up. But we'll start with you, Paul. What's your initial thoughts? You can still obviously do the form later on in the week to put your final thoughts. But what's your initial thoughts for prediction?
Well, being so high up, does that make me an influencer if I mention it? Everyone follow me? I don't know.
You could throw people off. You see, you could put
I could
a result here and then change your mind. So.
Well, I've been desperately trying not to get misty-eyed and overconfident, but I fancy ourselves in that grinding 1-0 win that Ali mentioned feels about right. So I'm going to go 1-0.
Cool, lovely. And Ali?
I think 1-0 is not too far off. I think we might just get 2-0, I think, on Saturday. I think we'll get the 1-0 and then maybe nick another one quite late on to seal it. I think hopefully it won't be a nervy affair, but I think we'll score early and then we might be a bit nervous for a long time, but then nick it quite late on again and get second one.
Well, I'm gonna go with 3-1 just because I don't think we've got that many clean sheets in us, and we do owe them a little bit, so we need a nice big win. I'm not sure we've got much against them recently, so that'll be my one. I won't change my mind because I don't really pay much attention to it because I slipped out of the top 10 now. I stopped caring. But we are going to leave it there, and we're going to wrap up this episode. As always, I really appreciate everyone's ear attention because it is still funny. I don't care. Lottie's not even in the room, and I can just feel her eyes rolling at this moment. Leave us your feedback, like, follow, share at Sutton Podcast and all social medias. Don't forget to subscribe and so on. And I'd like to thank our sponsors, as always, Lucky Star Gin. Thank you to both of you guys, Ali and Paul. And thanks to the listeners. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Sutton Podcast. We will be back on Sunday with, I believe it's Joe and Neil, to talk about the great historic win against Bradford. And take care, and we'll catch up soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
United!